the next thing I know, I'm out of my bed. I remember just this brightest light. And I remember seeing thousands of people, but they were all in white and bright clothes. And I remember thinking, for as bright as it was, it's kind of strange to me that I actually could see anything because there was that much brightness. Angelic, that's how I would explain the music, was just, I'm sure, angels singing. And I could hear it from all sides of this place. And I'd never heard any of the music, but I knew the words to every song. And I hear this voice, for me, it's God, saying, just remember those words and just say them out loud. And I think it'll shift the energy for you.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my guest, Holly Porter. Hello, Holly.
Hi, how are you?
I am fantastic. It is wonderful to have you here. I am so excited because we are both heading to the IONS conference, and I'm going to get a chance to meet you in person there.
Yay! I know I'm going to love that. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and you're actually speaking at the IONS conference. You're sharing your near-death experience with us here today, and you're also going to be sharing that at the conference, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, I'm actually on a trauma panel with two other really beautiful souls. I'm excited to be with them. We've been meeting quite a bit. One's from Colorado and one is from London. So it's been really fun to get, as I feel like they connected us for the right reasons, and we have a full 90 minutes. So there's lots of time to each share our stories and experiences and answer questions.
Is one of them Rebecca Castle?
It is. Yeah.
She is a friend of mine. She's also been a guest on my show
Love
a few
her.
times. She is lovely. So yes, you're going to have a wonderful time. So I look forward to that. And also just, listening to you share your near-death experience. By the way, for anybody listening, it's not too late to go to the IONS conference. It's coming up very quickly. The main event is August 28th through the 31st, but there's kind of a pre-day on the 27th where there are workshops and things. And it is in Chicago this year. So if, you're close, you could just drive there and go to it. It's IANDS.org, IANDS.org. And that's the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And their website will have all the information, and you can buy tickets there and everything. And I always have a great time going there. Holly, is it your first year, or have you been there many times?
So ironically, my experience was just 3.5 years ago. I didn't know about him for about a year. So it's going on 4 years. I was there 2 years ago. I missed last year, but I was there 2 years ago for my first time. I didn't even know this existed. That's where I found out about the different experiences, like out of body, spiritual, near death. I didn't know there was a difference. In fact, I thought I had two near death experiences, and then realized at that conference, after I came home and really gave it a lot of thought, I was like, oh my gosh, that's really what that was a spiritual experience. And so, I learned so much. It's really exciting. I mean, just the energy there is amazing, isn't it?
It is. And by the way, for you listening, you don't have to be an experiencer to go. You can just be somebody curious like myself. I just love to go and connect with these people and hear their stories. So if you do go, it'll be very exciting, and I know you'll have a wonderful time, and make sure to come say hello. If you're watching this, by the way, after the conference, there's another one every year. So you can still go to the same website and find out information. But Holly, right now, I know what people are really here for is to find out about your near-death experience, your spiritually transformative experience. So why don't you just jump right in? I know you were very sick with COVID. So take us through your experience.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent 70 days in the hospital with COVID. I was home a week before that, really sick. Just never thought I'd get it. I wasn't above it. I just felt like I was super healthy. I walked in there with no drugs, walked out with 12, which I'm super holistic. So that wasn't a fun thing. And one more diagnosis than I went in with when I looked at the list later. I thought, wow. So hospitals weren't my favorite place to be. I did receive good care, but the day I got in there, about 4 days later, they decided to put me on a ventilator. And I am not sure if I denied it before that, but my organs were starting to be jeopardized, and that's what happens. And so, we had a conversation that's recorded that I've listened to since, and I literally cry for myself when I listen to it, because my husband's home. I had given him COVID, so he was really sick. He was on oxygen, had blood clot, but he wasn't sick enough to go into the hospital. And my sisters took 24-hour shifts with me. So a lot of my experiences when you go back to get the rest of the story and put pieces and puzzles of things together, it's been good that they were there all the time and could remember a lot of these things. So it was me that made the decision to go. My near-death experience was in between my first and my second intubation, and I clearly know that, and I'll share that story. And so that when you look back at the records and what my sister said, I know exactly when it was. So for me, I knew I knew I was sick, and consciously I knew that I was leaving my body. I had a whole bunch of out of body experiences, and we can talk about those a little bit later, because I know people like the near death stuff better. And, but I took my bed with me like all the time in these experiences. I think because I remember seeing myself in my bed. So I was out of body, but thought, oh, if it doesn't go on this journey with me, I might not get it back. So I'm going to just take it with me. And my upcoming book, one of our chapters is called Me in My Bed, because it was so part of me. So that being said, my near death, I was leaving my room in my bed, and they have you sign a bunch of papers when you're on a ventilator. Um, and they also tie your hands to a bed. I don't know if people realize that. It's a very scary feeling. I had lost all five senses at one time. I couldn't see because I'm legally blind, and everybody wears their gloves, or hat. Yeah, gloves too. Let's see. Everything was yellow: hat, mask, gown, and then gloves. Everybody had those on. So unless someone was like 8 inches in front of my face, I couldn't tell who anyone was. The ventilator took 90% of my hearing away. Sounded like the Charlie Brown school teacher. Wah, wah, wah. That's what everybody sounded like. And then, of course, my hands are tied to the bed and taste and smell from COVID. So I was really happy a lot of that time they put me in an induced coma, and I was happy about that. So I'm going out in the hallway, just had signed some papers. And I remember sitting up and shaking my finger at the receptionist. Don't ask me why I chose her, saying, I rescind my DNR. I rescind my DNR. Do not resuscitate. And if you think about COVID, being resuscitated is a little bit different when nobody knew about it, first of all. Second of all, it's not like I got in a car wreck and I was on a ventilator because I was brain dead. I was there. I chose to go on that. So if you think about it that way, it's probably not a wise thing to have set up for yourself if you can get off. Back then, once you went on a ventilator, we all just believed that was it for you. And I had to choose that at that point, because I said, all I know is I can't breathe. And so I'm shaking my finger at her, and I'm being wheeled down in my bed. So I must have known I was not doing well and where I was going. But all these other beds were going with me down this corridor. And I think they were other people in the hospital that were dying, because half of the people in there were dying at that time. And there were 2 full floors full of people with COVID when I was in there. I got the Delta version. It was the fall of 2021. So as we're going down the hall, the next thing I know, we're in this stadium. That's the only way I can explain it. Like the biggest stadium that you could picture. So thousands and thousands of people. All of the beds got the sky boxes up above because we were in beds. The next thing I know, I'm out of my bed. I remember just this brightest light. And I remember seeing thousands of people, but they were all in white and bright clothes. And I remember thinking, for as bright as it was, it's kind of strange to me that I actually could see anything, because there was that much brightness. And I remember looking, and I could see everybody's feet. So even though it was almost like there was a fog, but you could see through everything. And it's so hard to explain that, and it's floating around, and I could see people's feet. So I knew nobody was on the ground, but there were thousands of people in there, and there were conversations going on. I mean, everybody was having a great time, and you knew nobody was talking. Everybody was just telepathy. Is that what you call it? Go, I mean, just back and forth. You had a thought, you had an answer, you had a thought, you had a question, you had a story, you wanted to know something. You just knew everything. And so I'm kind of just experiencing this, but I'm happy to be there because all of a sudden this music starts, and it was like later when I come back, I'm saying this is the best concert I ever went to. I mean, that's what I related it to. And I don't even like concerts, but I was having the greatest time because the angelic, that's how I would explain the music, was just, I'm sure, angels singing. And I could hear it from all sides of this place. And I'd never heard any of the music, but I knew the words to every song. So I like to sing. So I just joined in and started singing with everybody else. And we just had this great time. Well, then the next thing, I'm having what I would call my life review. And all I'm seeing is the love and feeling the love and the joy and peace of things. And I'm like in it. I'm just like in that moment. But I later questioned why I didn't see any bad. There's plenty of bad, trust me. And I got that answered later. So we'll talk about that later. But I was just stayed in that moment. And then I didn't get a choice. I didn't get a choice to come back or stay. But I was told a couple things before that happened. I was told I had been pitching an idea the day I found out I had COVID to about 9 people on a Zoom. And they had a billionaire backer in this company. And I wanted to partner this new software company I was creating with them. And I was told not to do that. I was told that that wasn't the highest and best thing to do. It would take me longer, which it has. And I just needed to just do it not on my own, but not with this partnership. Wouldn't have worked out. So that was the first thing. The second thing I was told was to go and start this nonprofit. And then the name I was given was Adventure Bucket Wish. And then next thing I know, I'm in my body. I'm back in the hospital. My sister Jill happened to be there. They're twins, Jan and Jill, and they were the two sisters that almost most of the time stayed with me 24/7. And she said that, so now here's her story, what she's sharing with me later. Um, I was scared. I believe that was the emotion I would say. I was scared, which is so strange coming from what I just explained to you to feeling fear. And she said she got out the paper because I'm intubated, got out the paper and it had the alphabet on it. And I would have to point at letters to spell words. Sometimes it would take me 2 hours to spell a word because I had no energy. I couldn't hardly lift my finger, anything. And then, I would get so exhausted. I'd just be like frustrated, just put me back in a coma. This sucks. So she said, you got out KID. And she's like, kids, trying to help me out. Do you want me to tell your kids something? She knew that wasn't it. NAP. And she's like, when I realized you spelled kidnap, she's like, oh my gosh. She says, I wanted to go throw up because I had ran an errand. You were doing better. So I ran an errand and I'm like, what happened while I was gone? She says, right when that happens, the doctor walks in with the nurse to extubate me and take me off the ventilator because I was doing better. And which makes sense, right? I got to come back. So there I was doing better. And they took it out. And, I was very concerned because there were spirits in the room still. I don't remember how many, but more than one. And I realized quickly that I was the only one seeing them because the doctors, nurse, whatever, whoever was in there left. And my sister was opening the closet and the bathroom door. And I remember I could see shadows of things because I'm legally blind. So without my correction on, I can't see who people are, but I could tell her, I could hear her and I could see her, fumbling around, but they were in there. And I never could figure out why I felt kidnapped. That was such an I didn't stress about it, but it was just odd that I would go through that experience and then come back and feel that. So I just went on my way. And after that, I had the two worst years of my life. I experienced every emotion times 100, every bad day I'd ever had, every situation that was not great in my life was 10, 20, 30 times worse than any of those experiences. Without going into a lot of detail more, that just stating how awful it was. Well, about 2 years later, there was a really hard situation, a family situation we went through. And I was coming out of that 2 years and I was really inspired to have a hypnosis session. I had a friend who had trained me a few years prior for hypnosis. So I was aware of the concept, how it worked, and trusted him. He agreed. I wanted it done just on the near death, not on my spiritual transformation, not on my out of body. I had those down. I like got those. And out of the integrity of the book, I thought there's some gaps missing in this story that I shared with you a few minutes ago. So he agreed and we did that. And it was almost like having another near death. It was just the pieces to the puzzle that it put together for me were amazing. So one thing he said to me, which were not his words, and as I speak, God's my higher power. I respect whatever that is for anyone else, but when I talk, that is what it is for me. Um, he said, all or more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And I became at such peace with that because I think I must have known that. And that's why I wanted the session. I have always had the gift of knowing before this. And if you have that, you know what I'm talking about. When people say how do you know that? I don't know. I just know. I'm not psychic. I just know something to be true for me. That's how my discernment's there. It's definitely heightened a lot since this experience, but I just knew I needed this session to figure some things out. So I'd come out of the 2 years of horribleness. I'm having this session. And the first place he takes me into this hypnosis session is what I call the in between. And it's dark on the right of me and it's light on the left of me. And I'm in there and all of that like matter is what I would call it, that I remember seeing in my near death that was all light and foggy looking. But now it's like colors that I can't even really say. I mean, if I had to guess, cobalt, silver, gray, black, all of them, but they're dark, but they're forming together and they form like a heart and then they'd all gravitate to the light. So I noticed that, but the matter that was in there, my hypnotist was saying, hey, is there somebody there? And I said, I don't know. And so we finally figured out, yes, there's an entity. So he said, bring the energy and see if it forms a person. And it would, but then, and it's right in front of me, and it would form together and then it would disperse. And then it would form together and then disperse. He's like, try to hold it there. And so I did. And yeah, it's definitely an entity, but I wasn't afraid of the entity. I mean, it was dark, but it was the in between. That's what I felt like he was. It was in between. So what happens in hypnosis that didn't scare me was a lot of times they have you become that challenge you're having, which is usually a person you're working through, and they become you so that the hypnotist can talk to them and find out what's going on. And I wasn't afraid. I just said, okay, and so he had him become me. And he said, when I count backwards from 3 to 1, you're going to tell me your name. And I'm still there. You still know in hypnosis what's going on. I could open my eyes anytime I wanted, but I was there for that experience. I was all in. It was like now I'm kind of the side person watching what's happening because he's now me. And I remember he says 3, 2, 1, Darby. And as I'd never heard that before. Ironically, I heard it 3 times in the next 30 days, that name, for different reasons. And I remember, oh, okay, we're talking to Darby now. So he starts asking him some questions. It doesn't sound like there's any connection to me. He wanted my light. And he couldn't go to the light and he couldn't have his own. So he wanted mine. And so they bantered back and forth for a few minutes, like, that's not yours. And the hypnotist was like, you're stealing that from her. That is her. And, it's just like this big conversation about it. And he wasn't negotiating, he was just like, no, I want it. And so then next thing I know, I could feel this light. I felt the heat and I felt the brightness. And I remember my eyes being closed, but seeing, I mean, it was so, so bright, like in my near death, that I had remembered, that light in the stadium where I could still see through it, but it was so, so bright. And I felt it coming. And Darby says, the light's coming to take her and I'm not going to be able to stop it. And when he said that, then the hypnotist said, well, then can't you just let her go? That's her light. And well, I'm not going to be able to stop it. So it went back and forth again for a minute. And then it was coming. And so he agreed to finally release me. And when he released me, then I was able to move forward. And 2 times while I was in that space of the in between, I remember looking to the right, but way far in the distance up on a mountain was one eye. And I haven't figured out, remember, all or more will be revealed to you when the time is right. I haven't figured out everything about that yet, other than I know it's protecting me somehow. But I remember seeing it twice and thinking to myself, that's weird. Okay. And then second time, I remember saying, noted, it's there. Okay. You want me to see you because I've seen it twice. I see you. So that I'm hoping for more on later. But as I went to move forward, there was a tree in front of me and it split at the top where I pictured like, oh, well, if I climb up the tree and go to the right, I'm in the dark. And if I climb to the left, I'm in the light. But the significance of the tree gave me so much peace. I did not have peace for those 2 years. And I can tell you now, the peace I feel, even though there's chaos and stress and things going on in life, I'm just so much peace. And I've never felt that my whole life. I've never felt that like I do now. And I remember seeing that tree and I remember realizing that when I was told those 2 things, I was told to start this nonprofit and I was told to not partner with this company. The company that I was starting was called Retreat RnR. And I remember doing the branding, sharing with the people, I need to have a tree in the logo. Nobody questioned me why. I didn't even think about it. I just said that. Like I didn't give it any consideration or thought, just I need to have a tree in the logo. So when the tree comes back and I'm proving it for the company, I never had them make one change. It had 11 leaves and 11 roots on it. So 1111. My hospital release date was 1111. My birthday is 11. And anyone that's a number person, that's just a really cool number. And so I was like feeling like God was telling me, you have done what I asked. You created that tree in your logo, not even remembering this was part of your near death experience. But now I'm going to show you because you need that. I needed that. I needed that comfort. So I get over to the light and now all of that matter that's swirling around, I see pink mixed in and their hearts and they're forming hearts and they're just going more into the light, more into the light. And that was the second thing that made me just so much more peace was the nonprofit Adventure Bucket Wish. When we had our gala to do our first fundraiser, I knew in every gift bag that they needed to have a little rose colored quart heart in them. Nobody questioned it. I didn't even know why. I just knew it needed to be in there. And I put it in this little bag with a ornament because it was around Christmas time that said hope. And when I saw that, it was again confirmation. You threw that in there. You knew that needed to be part of that experience because you did what you were supposed to do. You added that in there and you didn't even remember. So, okay. So those were really, really special. And then I get to the looking at the life review. I never revisited the stadium again and the hypnosis. And I think it's because I remembered that part. I got everything that I didn't remember. And that's really what my intention was by doing that. So as I'm seeing the life review, I must have questioned or the thought, because I didn't say it. I must have questioned, where's all the bad? Because now it's the second time I'm seeing that. Where's all the bad? And I hear this voice, for me, it's God, saying, this is what matters. And that's all I had to see. And I think after that 2 years, I had had so much pain and heartache. I didn't need to see the bad things. I needed to know, because people are good. You can find bad anywhere, but people are good, genuinely good. And I was so grateful for that, because that was so healing for me at that time, especially. It was like, wow, you got the gift of not seeing bad. You got the gift of the tree. You got the gift of the pink rose colored hearts, and got the gift that I will have more revealed to me when the time is right. I mean, wow. How lucky am I, And that was really when he pulled me out of that experience, which I was a little bummed at the time, because we'd been going for about an hour and 40 minutes at this point, and I wanted to see that concert again. So I didn't get to revisit that. But it's amazing the power of hypnosis and what it can do. And I wasn't supposed to see the rest of that until then. And the biggest message that I'll share with you that I got in the hypnosis session, besides what I've shared, that would have changed everything in those 2 years for me, was the message, love them where they're at. And if I would have had that message before, I would have changed the way I reacted in those 2 years. Everything would have been different. It would have shifted my perception. Every perspective, everything would have changed, and I wouldn't have had those 2 years that I never want to repeat again. However, I know now, looking back, and I'm still learning, that I needed those lessons. I needed to see how broken that system was that I was dealing with, for the philanthropy work that I need to do in the future and the changes I want to make in the future. Because the software company, I see the end result. I see what it's going to become. I just need to figure out all the things in between and bring in all the right people in between that want to be part of something like that. Because for me, it's the mission to be able to fund the philanthropy work that I want to do. And for me, I want to be a check writer. And I don't say I'm not a money motivated person, but I know it's going to take a lot of money to make the changes I want to make. And I don't want to be in it. I don't want to have my hands in what I think I already had to see that for 2 years, how broken that system was and how broken it made me become. And I want to help it so much. And so I think more will be revealed. And the other thing I did learn just in the spring, so hopefully you're tracking the story, because I know it does kind of bounce around a little. Darby was, remember when I couldn't understand why I felt kidnapped? Darby, I joked and said, oh, I probably had a guide that was in training and we all have to learn our job. And he was just training, or she, and they took me and they weren't supposed to. Like, that was my theory to justify why I felt that way, because I didn't know. Well, now what I know without a shadow of a doubt is that Darby intervened. He wasn't my guide. He came and he was able to intervene at the time I was headed, before the stadium. So from the hospital bed to getting there, before I got out of my bed, I believe he took me and put me in the in between, trying to get my light. And I believe I had to have a spiritual intervention to get back, because that was that light I felt and saw, and that came and took me when he couldn't hang on to me any longer. And so anyway, that's that part of the story.
It's so fascinating. And by the way, I have another theory for you. I'm just going to share with you
Love it.
when we get to that point, just based on a couple of other experiences like that I've heard from a couple of other near-death experiencers. But let's first just start in the part where you were in the stadium, because it just sounds like such an amazing
Yeah.
thing. And I've heard people talk about stadiums before.
Oh,
So how large was the stadium that you saw?
just huge. I mean, that's the only thing. I don't even know if I've ever been in anything else bigger. Um, I remember a story one time from a church person saying later at the end of days, there'll be this gathering 2 miles high of people. So it's interesting that that thought just came to me, and I hadn't thought about it till just now, but it was so many thousands of people that maybe that's what I was seeing is, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Well, it's yet to be seen if that's true. But for me, it was just, but nobody was on the ground, because I remember I could see feet, but yeah, just, and just the fog of it all. It was like, wow, not only can you hear, it's interesting that my senses were so gone in the hospital being treated physically on earth, and up there, every sense was heightened a ton. My vision was clear. My hearing was great. I could just, you could feel everything. You could hear everything, but not, you'd hear it in your mind. You didn't hear it. That makes sense. So
What about the love and the peace you experienced?
it was unlike anything here. And boy, when they say, love them where they're at, it takes away that judgment. It brings in takes away expectation, brings in, okay, they're who they are. I felt that. It was like so hard to explain some of these things. It was like you're experiencing what you're told to feel, or does that make sense? Like you're in it in the moment there. You're feeling it and you're seeing it and you're doing it really. And then you're told, love them where they're at. And it's like almost like I needed to be told that to have more of those experiences here on earth when I came back.
That phrase, love them where they're at, it's really powerful because if
Yeah.
everyone, you know, lived that way, it would just transform this world because,
Yeah.
I just see so much judgment of other people. You go on social
Mhm.
media or somebody who's a different
Yeah.
faith of yours or somebody who has a different
Guilty.
political views. Yeah, I just think it could be life changing if people would really remember that.
I'll share a quick story if you're okay about that.
Sure.
So I went on a business cruise last March in 2025 with 458 people. And there was a guy that was a therapist. It was a business cruise in San Juan. And we just connected, and we stayed up like half a night one time, just out. We had to keep going where the crowds weren't on the cruise because we were having this deep conversation. I was sharing this story with him. And then when I shared this, he had told me before that he has a lot. I don't know if he used the word hate, but being a therapist, they see a lot and they hear a lot of stories. And he just had a lot of not no respect for people, that had done bad things. And when I shared him love and where they're at, he like shifted. You could see in his eyes the whole, like his mind, everything just changed. And the next day he was texting me on the ship that you have changed my life. He goes, that's those simple words, love them where they're at. He goes, and then a couple other times during that, week, he had messaged me again and just said, I look at things so differently. I am always going to remember what you said, and thank you for sharing that. And I thought, for me, that message was for me because I needed it more than anyone. I needed to take the judgment out and love people where they are, probably more than anyone. But to be able to share that message and change other people's lives, or I mean, if one person hears this on the show and that changes your thinking or feelings towards somebody, maybe you have some negative feelings towards, it's worth it to me.
It certainly is. And I think, when you share ideas like that, they ripple out. And so they do reach a lot of people that are, listening to this, or maybe are affected by the person that listened to this, and so on and so on.
And the emotion, it's interesting when you say, like, how do you feel? I don't dig deep in that. I feel like I'm an empath, so I feel others, but it like, I'm not one that really digs deep. When people always say, what's the emotion behind that? It's like, I don't know. I was just such a surface person. And those 2 years that I felt every single emotion every day. I mean, I cried every day for 2 years. For 2 years, I prayed every day I would have died. I literally was like, why would God save me to put me through this hell? And I know now. I mean, I'm sure I'll figure out more of it, but it's like sometimes when we're in it, just a little thing to think about for your listeners. Sometimes we don't realize what's the experience I need to be having right now. I'm not loving it. I don't want to live it again. What lesson do I need to learn should be your question. What lesson do I need to learn to move through this faster? What do I need to know? What do I need to feel? And I think that would help. And next time I go through hard days, I think of those things. And next time the judgment comes up when I'm looking at somebody and thinking a thought I shouldn't be, I always say, but love them where they're at. And it just shifts the energy like that.
There are so many people going through hard times, and it is hard when you're in the moment to realize that there's some good coming from it. But the way you look at it, like you said, is, what did I learn from this? And a lot of times there are gifts that come from it, even when it's very hard. When you were in this stadium and people were conversing, do you recall any conversations that either you had or anybody around you had?
I'm hoping more will be revealed on that when the time is right, because I just remember being amazed at how fast the knowledge was. Just the thought processes were just, I mean, I just like light speed. You look at someone, you might have had a thought, but you already had the answer, so nothing specifically. I'd like more time with that. I might do another hypnosis session on that, just the stadium, because I think there probably is a lot more there, but maybe it wasn't important to the parts of the story I need to know right now and what I need to do in my life right now. And I'm okay with that. But I just remember it just being the gift of all knowing. So I felt like before I had the gift of knowing, and then there I had the gift of all knowing. If I wanted to know something, I would know it instantly.
I'm also curious if you recall anything from your life review, some of the things that you saw that were good.
A lot of hugging. So I wasn't really a hugger. I would say in the last maybe just before I got sick, I maybe COVID, really about that time, because that had already been going on for about a year and a half or almost 2 years when I got sick. Well, a year and a half. I became a lot more sensitive that way. I wasn't really raised in, I mean, my family was really close, but we weren't big, touchy feely, huggy people. More so everyone is now, as but I remember that was going on a lot. But I remember feeling the joy from it, not like this is weird or, oh, this is awkward or I'm not used to this. It wasn't anything like that because there was so much unconditional love and peace about it. So acts of service, I remember seeing a lot of that. If I didn't mention that before, um, when you just the giving part of my life, that I was involved in a lot of service the last, not as much since I've been sick, because I had to actually flip the script and I had to let people serve me, and that was a really hard lesson to have people. I mean, in the hospital I couldn't do anything. You have people wiping your butt. I mean, I literally couldn't. It was when I finally could lift my phone and then I could lift my iPad. That was like big days for me, because I couldn't even hardly move, and I had to relearn everything there. And so I think just being able to see that in a live review of all of what you gave, and remember, I needed that for my heart. I think God is a God of love, and it was such a gift to be able to not have to see the negative, because I didn't need it at that point. And I think there'll be a time when I probably need to see that and realize, there is a big piece though that I did realize in that experience too that I didn't share. And it's a tough one. We will have to experience the pain that we cause somebody. And at that time, I was really struggling with a family member with what was going on with my grandkids. And I wouldn't have wished that pain that I was feeling on my worst enemy, let alone my, sorry, I did say it was my, and to know that that is an experience that will have to have, particularly in this situation, or somebody else in their situation will have to feel, makes me sad. Just like I'll have to feel the pain I caused somebody, whether I knew it or not. It was caused, it was felt, it was endured by somebody else. It might have shifted somebody else's whole life or perspective and some choices they made in their life. And we get to be accountable for that. But in that moment, all I had to see was what mattered. And that was what was mattered, was the good.
It's interesting that you said you don't wish that pain on anybody. You don't wish them to experience it, because when people hear about life reviews, I think some people are a bit relieved because they go, okay, now that person's going to know how they made me feel. Because
Oh,
that person probably never acknowledged in this lifetime that they hurt somebody. And
yeah.
so,
That's the
people
human
kind of,
experience, though. That's not a heaven
right.
experience. That's
Yes.
the love them where they're at. That's
Yeah.
where that needs to come in, because
Yeah.
that's some healing that that person needs to do, because that's the justice that they want to see served for the way they
Right.
were felt. It's kind of like karma. And we look at people and say, sometimes you get to watch something happen to somebody, and the human in us says, oh, good. Karma actually does work. I've caught myself doing that many times, with situations, and think, oh, that's your consequence for what you did to that person. It's not our place to judge.
I love that because I can be very human oftentimes.
Same.
All right. So here's my theory. Now, clearly, you are the expert on Darby. So I'm just throwing this out here because I had one guest, Ruth Ellen, and another guest, Steve, who saw some negative entities.
Okay.
And what they both realized was, well, for example, Steve, let's start with him. When he heard some of the things that these entities were saying to him,
Yeah.
he realized, oh, that's what I used to say to myself.
Hmm.
And then also with Ruth Ellen, she had this tunnel experience where there was good and evil fighting over her.
Oh,
And ultimately, she realized that the ones that were tugging on her were her own negative things in her life or thoughts that she had. So
yeah.
just throwing it out
Yeah.
there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was the only one there in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel any connection to him.
Okay.
I just think he wanted my light. He was just a very selfish person, that couldn't get his own. So he was just going to wait for the next person to come through that he could get their light. Like, I have no doubt. So I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to get the rest of the story. I feel like that's where I'm at, is, oh, what's going to happen next? Because it's evolving, where a lot of people, they get what they get, and that's what they got, in their experience. And for me, I still think there's more to come, and some ahas, and I, to be at peace with that for my personality is so rare. Like, usually I like want to know now, I don't like the surprise. But with this, I don't think I could have handled everything that I would have been given, and lessons I needed to learn. Those take time. I mean, it's been going on 4 years now for me, and I learn all the time, and I'm grateful I do. There's so much more. Somebody told me the other day that does near death things all the time, experiences with people, that it takes like 10 years to unravel everything.
Oh, yes.
That gets me excited. I'm okay with that.
You tell your story about Darby very calmly, and you said you were calm, but to me, that sounds very scary. And so this is my thought process right now. I'm going, well, is it that easy when we leave our bodies for somebody to snatch us? And I don't know if he wanted your soul or what. I mean, so to me, that's a really scary idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no scientist or whatever you call them that figured things out. But I don't even listen to that many near death stories. I'm not like so because I had my own, I don't have to. I feel like I don't want to taint mine, what I know, what I remember. So even when people say, oh, somebody else had that, somebody else is, oh, that's really cool. That it's like kind of a verification. This is what I know. I know and believe that God shows us our experience how we can understand it. And that's why there are some similarities. And that's why there are a lot of different things, because how somebody interprets their experience, like you said, maybe that good and evil. eh, Darby just wanted my light. That's all he cared about.
But when you say light, are you saying your soul?
I don't know. I just know that's all I got was he wanted my light. Is your light your soul? I don't know. Maybe I should explore that a little more. It's a good thought. Good question.
Yeah, like I said, it's a very, I think, scary thing to think that there are entities out there that can kind of snatch us. And
Well, think about it though. It wouldn't be at any moment. I mean, think how vulnerable I was. I was on my way to death. I was dying. I knew that. I had told the receptionist, rescind my DNR. I had gone to the stadium. And then before I got out into the stadium, I just remember being in the sky boxes. And then there was this big gap. It was like, that's when I think I was taken. I just think that that was vulnerable right there. And that's where he saw an opportunity, because I have no doubt he's going to grab the next piece of light that he can. I don't know if I don't know if that's endless or what, but obviously he didn't get to keep anybody's yet because he was still looking for light with me. So it'll be interesting to see unravel all that as the years go by, or later, or whatever we figure out. But
yeah, because everybody's going to be that vulnerable at some point.
sure.
We're all going to die.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, you wonder, like, I don't know. I kind of wonder, like the COVID fog where I was so out of it at the time. Did that make me more vulnerable to going there? You know what I mean? I don't know. Or if someone dies instantly, is it easier for them not to go there? Because you hear a lot of people. I hear a lot of people see dark, but I didn't see dark. I just called the in between. It was just I was in between. I was in between the light and the dark before I got to the light. I'm glad I got the light though. That gives me a lot of hope.
I will say that I've heard other people share their story when they've had a coma, and they also have some, kind of different experiences. Do you think at all that some of it is like a coma induced dream, but it was mixed in with your near death experience and they seem like they were together?
I feel like that because I had so many things I remember that were out of body, and then I had the clear spiritual transformation experience, and then the near death. There were so many other things in between that. It's something to ponder, but I don't feel like it was a dream. Like I feel like even my out of body, I went back in time to a great 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 grandfather's house that was 165 or so years old. I went back to that house. It's been remodeled a couple times, but the original staircase, creepy staircase, that's a spiral that goes down in the basement with a dirt floor, is still there. Like when I saw that, it confirms. So, I mean, that could be a whole nother show, just the out of body and the spiritual stories, it just confirms so much. Cause I had funny things too that were just like, oh, that's probably just the medication, making you kind of just delusional. But this stuff was so different. It's almost like it was defining moments. It was defining words. It was defining pictures and symbols that I saw. To me, that's different than just the dream.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
For me. Yeah.
And definitely you're the expert because,
I'm no
you know
expert.
exactly what you experienced. And I just have these curious questions.
Yeah. But I love when people ask questions like you and they're curious, because it makes me think, because I don't feel like it's going to change my story, but it might make me dig a little deeper. It might make me, like, it was just this year when I figured out, oh, it was Darby that took me. So yeah, there's always things to learn. I don't feel like though the story will change. I don't need to adapt. I saw what I saw. Later, if I remember more, if I have another hypnosis session on just the light, just the stadium, just the music and the concert, but I remember even saying, when I was trying to explain things to my sisters. Like I was trying to put it together what happened. And later I figured it out on my own. Like I thought, how did they not, by what I was saying, figure it out to tell me I just had a near death experience? Like they didn't do that. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't making sense, but when you're talking about, no, I went to the best concert, go look it up, go look in the paper. Like who looks at the paper anymore? I was like, oh no, it was the biggest event I've ever been to. And I was just adamant, where I was. And it was just interesting how I put it together later, like, oh my gosh, this is what happened. And I could barely talk even with my trach that I ended up getting, at the end. I could talk, just not very well, but I had lots to say. I remember hardly sleeping. I remember every time there was someone there to visit, because when I went to the second hospital, I could have more people visit. Everybody heard the stories, and I probably should interview them all now and say, what do you remember from that? Because I probably sounded like some crazy person, but there was so much that was clear. I just didn't put it together late until, and I think in the hospital, I put it together. It was a near death, but it was like till I started listening to the words that I was saying myself. It made it more clear.
Most of us have never experienced being that sick as you were in the hospital. And it is really interesting that, within it, you had this near-death experience, which was just beautiful and so full of peace compared to your illness. And then also, you had a spiritually transformative experience when you were in your hospital room. Can you share that?
Well, this particular moment, my mom, who had passed away a year and a half prior, she came to me on my right side, and she was with me many times in the hospital on my right side, which was confirmed by several other healer friends of mine that knew that. And she said, it's not your time to go. She goes, and you need to fight. And I don't love that word. And when she said it, all of a sudden I hear chanting, fight, fight, fight. And above my bed, I was in my bed, but above my bed came all of my ancestors, grandparents that had passed on, aunts, uncles. My brother had passed away in a car wreck really bad, and his wife. I had a grandbaby that had just died at 2 days old, 6 months before, but she was an adult. That was really special. I knew it was her. And so they're all in white as they're chanting fight. Then the word gets said again, a whole new group appears above. And now it's my siblings and my kids and my husband. Now it's friends. And then just all these just kept going and going, going. Like if you were looking in a mirror, a two-way mirror, and could just see back as far as you could go, it was like that, but in front of me. And it just went on and on and on. Thousands of people. Now, a different experience than the stadium, though. This is totally different because everyone behind the ones in white that appeared in the beginning were in street clothes. So I knew they were all living people. All the people that passed on were in front. And it was so, so comforting to know, like that was basically my message was, you're going to live, but you need to fight. And to see all of that support and love thrown at me, it was like, I think that the people I didn't know were all those, God was showing me all those people on all the prayer lists that I was on, that all my friends had put me on all over the world. I had friends all over the world. They're all hanging on to social media, waiting for those post updates from my sisters, because everyone just thought the next one was me passing away. And I just feel like those were all those people that I got to see and I got to feel that love and support of all these people are waiting for me to come back. And that was it for me. I was like, got it. That's all I needed to know was that, okay, I just got to fight. Not that I wasn't, but I probably fought a little harder after that because it's that knowing, and just knowing that you're going to live without a doubt, you're going to live was just an amazing thing. So that's where I always felt like it was a near death, but it wasn't. It was a spiritual, because that's what it was for me. So that was that story.
That is so reassuring, because when you get a message like that from the other side and they're saying fight, that reassurance that, okay, I am going to be okay. I just, have to really work hard at this. I love that. Yeah. Your story is so incredible. I love that the things that you were shown in your life review that were positive. One of those was service. And that's exactly what you are doing a lot of. I know you run a nonprofit. I want to just find out more about, the best way to connect with you. Maybe tell us just a tiny bit about your nonprofit that you are doing as well. And if somebody wants to connect with that.
Oh, I love it. So, a quick story about that. When I did not get much instruction other than the name for the nonprofit. And when I got out of the hospital, I was like, what's the mission? You get the name, but you don't get the mission? Wait, what's wrong here? Well, long COVID hit me after I got out of the hospital that nobody knew what it was. It was just starting to be, now there's over 100 million people suffering. So it became the mission. I literally talk about a fight. That's what I felt like I was in to get people to care. Nobody wanted to hear the word. No, I mean, you go, if it gets out on YouTube, they suppress it. It was just like, these people need help. It's an underserved community. And we need to get the message out that just because people got over it and they're not testing positive anymore doesn't mean they're not suffering still. All the health problems for me started coming in after. And for probably 3 years, I was only about 70% better. 70% stinks when you were healthy.
Right.
And I did everything for my health. So one day I something wasn't right and I knew it, but I didn't know what. So I took all the fundraisers off the calendar that year and I was doing a podcast for it. And I was interviewing somebody that had a long COVID story. And I started reliving mine. I'm like, kind of almost like couldn't breathe. And I was like, what is happening? And all of a sudden I got a download. This is your last podcast. This is not your mission anymore. I was like, whoa. And I was actually going, yes, because not that the mission didn't matter and not that people didn't matter, but I think what happened is it put me in sick space and I was living in wellness. I wanted to get better. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to conquer this. And the Facebook groups and things that were on for that, they were people suffering and I felt for them, but it put me in a bad space. And so anyway, long story short, we switched the mission and decided, okay, God gave me the name. My one of my board members, friends, who's a healer, she said, if I remember right, you didn't get the mission. We came up with that for you. And I said, yeah, you're right. She says, then what mission would light you up? What would help you want to make this what it should be? And so we switched, kept Adventure Bucket Wish, changed out the website and everything. And we now serve women leading with purpose because that was what came out of it for me. I could have never told you my purpose before I got sick and all this happened. I think God had to put me in a coma to get me still long enough so I would listen. And then I kind of went off on a little detour and maybe we did enough good for that cause, but we'll do so much more with this one. It just feels so much better and makes me so much happier. And, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And so that's the shift. Adventurebucketwish.org is where you can look that up and you can contact me on all social media. My email is holly@hollyporter.com. Love to hear your story, your thoughts, your questions. I probably don't have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers, but if you have anything thought provoking, I'm always willing to listen.
I will also put that information in the description. For anybody listening, you just click the little word more, and that opens up the description. You might have to now click one more time where it says more. It opens everything up, and you will find all of Holly's information there as well. And of course, one last time I want to mention you are going to be a speaker at the IONS conference, which is coming up very soon. And that's going to be so much fun. And I'm excited for you for being a speaker and on a panel where you are going to be talking about trauma. So some exciting stuff. And for any of you listening at home, it's not too late if you can make it to Chicago, August 28th through the 31st. And actually the 27th is a pre-conference day. Think about it. You can go to iands.org, iands.org, and you can find out more information there. If you're listening after this is over, after the end of that conference, no worries. There's one every single year. Just go to that same website. Holly, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And I'd love to have you leave the audience with, I guess, what you would hope they most take away from what we've talked about today.
Well, the most important message I think I could leave is reminding people to love them where they're at. If you're having a hard situation or struggling with somebody, just remember those words and just say them out loud. And I think it'll shift the energy for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Simple.
Beautiful words of wisdom from you. And Holly, it just really was wonderful talking to you today. And I'm really excited that I'm going to see you at the upcoming IANS conference.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
You are so welcome. Holly is really everything that I look for in a guest. Very genuine, very kind. And these experiences do transform people, and you really see it in who they are. I loved listening to her story because while it had some things that were very common to near-death experiences, it also had some very unique things. So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about what stood out to you. And I'd love it if you would share those in the comments. She had a life review that was neat. And I love that it really pointed out the positive things that she was doing. She also saw the stadium. I've heard similar things like that before. And then, of course, the love and the peace. We always hear about that. But then she had this experience with this being, this entity that she called Darby. Now, that was really interesting to me. Still in my brain, I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around all of it. And, it's something I think that's worth exploring if I could have other guests that have similar experiences to that. Is it something that we could all encounter, or was it just catered to her? Now, I did mention a couple of other guests that I had on that kind of experienced different but somewhat similar things. One of them is Steve, and the other one is RUTHELLEN. Excellent, both of those folks, and I will have links to their episodes. RUTHELLEN explains more of it in part 4. And yes, I know that's a long series, but my gosh, her story is mind-blowing. It will blow you away. And I can't remember with Steve, it was part 1 or part 2. I'm trying to do all of these now in one longer episode, but at the time I was breaking them up more. But both of those are really fascinating. So I'd encourage you to watch those. And then again, just share your thoughts on everything that we talked about today, and the things that did stand out to you. You can always just make a comment about Bubbie, anything like that, or just a thank you to Holly. That's always nice as well. I thank all of you for being here. I'm really grateful that you come back week after week. Thank you for your likes. And if you haven't given it a like yet, please do. Subscribe if you haven't, and then share it with a friend if you know someone who may like this. We did mention the IANS conference. Holly is going to be there on a panel, and it's going to be really interesting. I know Rebecca, I'm not sure who else is on the panel, but just great people. I'll put a link to Rebecca too in the description, so you can find her too and her story. But the IANS conference is just an amazing time. And no matter what year you go, it's wonderful. To find out more about the conference, you can just go to iands.org. And, if it's this year, the next year, whenever you're watching this, they're going to have information for whatever the upcoming conference is. I go and I have a wonderful time. Everybody I know that goes really has a great time. So we would love to see you there as well. I will meet some really great people at the upcoming IANS conference, and they will be on my show. So you can count on some really fascinating guests to come up. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I really hope you'll join me in the next episode. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.